Let me tell you about the day everything changed. The day we learned that humans weren't just another species of bipedal mammals wandering around the galaxy, pretending to know what they were doing. Oh no, my fellow Vorthax citizens, they were something far worse. They were creative problem solvers with absolutely no sense of self-preservation. I am Keth, 902, former strategic intelligence analyst for the Galactic Confederation, and current, well, let's call it involuntary retirement, thanks to what happened on Serenity Station. You know, that little orbital platform hovering above the supposedly peaceful mining world of Kepler 442b? The same station that was supposed to be nothing more than a routine diplomatic meeting between the Confederation and these new humans who had just stumbled into our corner of the galaxy 3 cycles ago. 3 cycles. 3 measly rotations around their home star, and they'd already managed to colonize 17 systems, establish trade routes that made our economists weep with envy, and somehow convinced half the minor species in the Outer Rim to sign mutual defense pacts with them. But that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was how they did it without anyone really noticing until it was too late. They're harmless, Supreme Commander Vex 9 had assured the Confederation Council just weeks before. Barely evolved past chemical rockets when we first made contact. Their military technology is primitive at best. Standard kinetic weapons, crude energy shields, nothing our fleets can't handle if negotiations go poorly. Just one thing before we begin. YouTube tells me 94.3% of you watching aren't subscribed. Subscribing is free. It really supports the channel, and you'll get more amazing HFY sci-fi stories delivered straight to you. Don't miss out. If only he could see what I saw that day. If only any of us had known what humans call keeping their cards close to their chest. Apparently, it's a gambling reference. Humans love their gambling metaphors almost as much as they love building things that go boom in creative ways. The morning started normally enough. Well, as normal as anything gets when you're dealing with humans. I was stationed in Observation Deck C, monitoring the diplomatic proceedings through our standard surveillance equipment. The human delegation had arrived 3 days earlier aboard what they called the UES Defiance. Now, that should have been our first clue, shouldn't it? Who names a diplomatic vessel Defiance? But no, we assumed it was just another example of human linguistic quirks, like their tendency to name their ships after abstract concepts or dead philosophers. The delegation was small, 5 humans total. Their lead negotiator was a woman named Captain Jessica Tank Morrison. Yes, Tank. Apparently, it was a nickname she'd earned during some conflict on their homeworld. The other 4 were her advisors, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Boom Patterson, Chief Engineer Elena Vasquez, Communications Officer David Kim, and their security chief, a mountain of a human named simply Rock. I'm still not sure if Rock was his real name or another one of their ridiculous nicknames. Captain Morrison stood about, average height for a human, with short brown hair that looked like she'd cut it herself with a plasma cutter, and eyes that reminded me of our homeworld's winter storms, gray, cold, and utterly unpredictable. She wore their standard military uniform, navy blue with silver trim, but something about the way she carried herself made it clear she wasn't just another bureaucrat in fancy clothes. Honored delegates of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice carrying that peculiar human accent that made their words sound like controlled explosions. We appreciate this opportunity for peaceful dialogue. Supreme Commander Vex 9 preened his scales smugly. He was convinced this would be a simple negotiation. The humans would accept Confederation oversight, agree to technology sharing agreements that heavily favored us, and gradually be absorbed into our existing power structure. Standard procedure for newly contacted species. The Confederation welcomes Terra and her colonies into the galactic community. Vex 9 replied with all the condescension he could muster. We trust you understand the importance of following established protocols for species integration. Your rapid expansion has caused some concern among our member worlds. Captain Morrison, smiled. It was the kind of smile that predators give their prey right before pouncing. Oh, we understand perfectly. In fact, we've prepared a comprehensive proposal for peaceful coexistence that addresses all of your concerns. She gestured to Lieutenant Commander Patterson, who activated a holographic display showing star charts of human-controlled space. What we saw made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. As you can see, Morrison continued, human space now encompasses 43 systems, not the 17 your intelligence suggests. We've been busy. Wait. What? 43 systems? Our latest reconnaissance had confirmed only 17. I immediately began cross-referencing the displayed coordinates with our navigation databases. Every single system she was showing existed, and according to our records, most had been classified as uninhabitable or economically non-viable by previous Confederation surveys. Impossible, Vex 9 hissed, his confidence evaporating like morning dew on a desert world. Our sensors would have detected any significant colonization efforts. Morrison's smile widened. Would they? Tell me, Commander, when was the last time your sensors were calibrated to detect human technology? Because we've noticed some interesting gaps in your surveillance network. She nodded to Kim, who began highlighting specific regions on the star map. Red zones appeared scattered throughout what we'd believed was empty space, forming a complex web that surrounded several major Confederation trade routes. You see, Morrison explained with the patience of a teacher addressing particularly slow students, humans have this funny habit of building things in places other species consider impossible. Asteroid mining stations inside radiation fields, orbital platforms in the coronas of unstable stars, deep space manufacturing facilities in the void between systems. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not afraid of a little danger. The temperature in the conference room seemed to drop several degrees. Council members were frantically accessing their personal data pads, trying to verify what they were seeing. I was doing the same from my observation post, and the results were unsettling. But this is just our civilian expansion, Morrison continued, her tone becoming almost conversational. I'm sure you're more interested in our defensive capabilities. She turned to Chief Engineer Vasquez, who looked like she was trying very hard not to laugh. Vasquez was a compact woman with grease stains on her uniform and hands that moved like she was constantly building something in her mind. When she spoke, her voice carried the kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly how things work. The Confederation fleet currently positions 73 capital ships within striking distance of human space. Vasquez began, reading from her data pad. The dreadnought Eternal Glory, stationed at the Proxima Relay. The carrier group Divine Justice, patrolling the Centauri approach. Battlecruiser formations at strategic points throughout the sector. Should I continue? The silence that followed was deafening. How could they possibly know the exact positioning of our fleets? That information was classified at the highest levels. We know because we've been watching, Morrison explained, apparently reading the expressions on the council members' faces. For 3 years, we've been learning, studying your tactics, your technology, your logistics. Amazing how much intelligence you can gather when people assume you're too primitive to pose a threat. Supreme Commander Vex 9 was beginning to show signs of panic. His scales had shifted from their usual blue-green to a sickly yellow color, and I could hear his breathing becoming rapid and shallow even through the observation deck's audio sensors. "What do you want?" he managed to ask. Morrison leaned back in her chair, looking for all the world like someone discussing vacation plans rather than galactic politics. "Simple. We want to be left alone to develop in peace. No technology transfer requirements, no Confederation oversight committees, no restrictions on our expansion into unclaimed systems. In exchange, we offer mutual non-aggression pacts and limited trading agreements." "Absolutely not!" Vex 9 snapped, his military training overriding his fear. "No newly contacted species receives such autonomy. The Confederation has protocols. The Confederation has protocols for dealing with primitive species who stumble into space travel by accident," Morrison interrupted, her pleasant tone never wavering. "We're not those kinds of humans." She stood up, and something about her movement made every security guard in the room tense. Not because she appeared threatening, but because she moved with the kind of fluid precision that suggested extensive combat training. "Rock, would you mind showing our hosts the demonstration we prepared?" The massive human nodded and activated his own holographic display. What appeared was a real-time tactical readout showing the space around Serenity Station. Our own fleet positions were highlighted in blue, looking exactly as they should. But then red markers began appearing. One by one, dozens of contacts materialized on the display. Ships that hadn't been there moments before, or had been dismissed as space debris by our sensors. They were everywhere, above us, below us, surrounding the station in a perfect sphere of potential destruction. "Stealth technology," Rock explained in a voice that sounded like gravel being poured into a metal drum. "Human specialty. Been here for 2 days." I was frantically trying to verify what I was seeing through the station's sensor array, but the results were impossible to deny. Somehow, an entire human fleet had positioned itself around Serenity Station without triggering a single alarm. Ships that looked like nothing we'd ever encountered. Angular, aggressive designs covered in what appeared to be adaptive camouflage that bent light and sensor waves around their hulls. "This is an act of war," Vex 9 roared, reaching for his communicator. "Actually," Morrison said calmly, "this is a demonstration of why war would be a very bad idea." Lieutenant Commander Patterson stepped forward, and I finally understood why humans called him Boom. The man looked like he'd been personally designed by some mad god of explosions. Broad shoulders, scarred hands, and eyes that gleamed with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for children discovering new toys. "See, the thing about humans," Patterson began, his voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't identify, "is that we've been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. Not just fighting them, but getting really, really good at them. And when a species that's perfected the art of killing each other suddenly finds itself with unlimited space and resources." He shrugged. "Well, let's just say our creativity tends to run wild." More displays activated around the conference room, showing technical specifications that made my blood run cold. Kinetic bombardment platforms that could accelerate asteroid fragments to significant fractions of light speed. Swarm missile systems that turned space debris into guided weapons. Something they called planetary pacification protocols that I didn't want to think about too closely. "Of course," Morrison added, "we'd much prefer to use all this innovation for peaceful purposes. Trade, exploration, scientific advancement, but if forced to choose between submission and survival." She shrugged eloquently. The ETE council members were in full panic mode now, speaking rapidly in their native languages, frantically trying to contact their respective governments. But Morrison wasn't finished. "Oh, and before anyone thinks about calling for reinforcements," she said, checking what appeared to be a standard human timepiece, "you should know that approximately 37 minutes ago, every major Confederation military installation within 50 light-years experienced simultaneous communications blackouts. Nothing permanent, you understand. Just enough to ensure this conversation remains private until we're finished." The blood drained from my faces, all three of them in proper Vorthak fashion. Simultaneous communications blackouts across 50 light-years? That level of coordination and precision was theoretically impossible for a species that had only recently achieved interstellar travel. Supreme Commander Vex 9 finally found his voice again, though it came out as more of a croak than his usual commanding tone. "How?" Morrison's smile returned, and this time it was genuinely warm, like a teacher proud of a particularly clever student. "Trade delegations are wonderful things, aren't they? So many ships, visiting so many worlds, carrying such innocent cargo. Amazing how much you can accomplish with a few tons of agricultural samples and cultural artifacts." The implications hit me like a meteor strike. For 3 years, human traders and diplomats had been moving freely throughout Confederation space, and no one had thought to examine their cargo too closely. After all, what threat could primitive humans possibly pose? "Sleeper agents," I whispered to myself, not realizing I'd spoken aloud until my supervisor, Senior Analyst Moore 443, turned to look at me with all 4 eyes wide with terror. "Not agents," Morrison corrected, apparently having heard me through the conference room's audio pickup. "Just good old-fashioned human ingenuity. You'd be surprised what you can build with basic industrial equipment and a complete lack of safety regulations." She walked over to the main view screen, which showed the peaceful blue-green marble of Kepler 442b rotating slowly below the station. Millions of Confederation citizens lived on that world, going about their daily lives completely unaware of the conversation happening in orbit above them. "Here's what's going to happen," Morrison announced, her tone becoming businesslike. "The Confederation Council is going to vote on our proposal for mutual non-aggression. The vote will be unanimous in favor. In exchange, human space will become a neutral zone, open to peaceful trade and cultural exchange, but closed to military expansion by any galactic power." "And if we refuse?" Vex 9 asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer wouldn't be pleasant. Morrison turned back to face the council, and for just a moment, her friendly diplomatic mask slipped. What I saw underneath was something that had stared death in the face so many times it had become old friends with it. "Then you'll learn why humans don't make very good victims," she said simply. The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, I was reassigned to a monitoring station in the Outer Rim, watching human space from what the Confederation considered a safe distance. Safe? Ha! As if distance meant anything to a species that had just demonstrated they could appear anywhere, any time, without warning. But that's getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened immediately after that vote. The council chamber erupted into controlled panic the moment Morrison and her team departed. Vex 9 was screaming orders into his communicator, demanding immediate fleet repositioning and emergency protocols. Council members were arguing in 7 different languages simultaneously, and I was frantically trying to track the human ships as they vanished from our sensors one by one. "Where did they go?" Senior Analyst Moore 443 demanded. all four of his eyes focused on my display screens. "I don't know," I admitted, watching the last red marker fade from the tactical display. "They're just gone. Gone like they'd never been there at all." Our most advanced sensor arrays showed nothing but empty space where moments before an entire human fleet had been positioned. It was as if reality itself had decided to play a practical joke on us. 3 hours later, the real show began. The first sign something was wrong came from the hegemony border worlds. The Zephyrian hegemony had been our primary rival for the past 2 centuries, constantly testing Confederation resolve with border skirmishes and navigation errors that brought their warships uncomfortably close to our territory. They'd been notably quiet since the human contact, but intelligence suggested they were preparing something big. Turns out they were. Just not what anyone expected. Priority transmission from Admiral Kex 7, commanding the border fleet at Junction Station, my communication officer announced, his voice shaky with disbelief. The hologram that appeared showed Admiral Kex 7 looking like he'd seen his own funeral. His usually immaculate uniform was rumpled, his scales had lost their healthy luster, and when he spoke, his voice cracked like adolescent molting season. "Command, we have a situation. The hegemony launched a surprise attack on the Proxima colony 3 hours ago. 12 dreadnoughts, 4 carrier groups, the works. It should have been a massacre. Should have been." Those 2 words carried enough weight to collapse a star. "What happened, Admiral?" Vex 9 demanded. "The humans happened," Kex 7 replied, and I swear his voice dropped to a whisper. "They came out of nowhere, ships we'd never seen before, moving in formations that violated basic physics. The hegemony fleet. It lasted 17 minutes. 17 minutes. An entire hegemony battle fleet destroyed in 17 minutes. "Survivors?" someone asked. "All of them," Kex 7 said, and that somehow made it worse. "The humans didn't destroy a single ship outright. They disabled everything, weapons, engines, life support systems, even the toilets, from what I'm hearing. Then they broadcast a message on all frequencies." The communication officer's hands were shaking as he activated the playback. Captain Morrison's voice filled the chamber. But this wasn't the diplomatic Morrison we'd met 6 months ago. This was someone else entirely. "Attention, Zephyrian hegemony forces. You have attacked a world under human protection. Your weapons are disabled, your ships are dead in space, and your crews are currently discovering what it's like to drift helplessly while contemplating their life choices. You have 1 hour to abandon your vessels and activate your emergency beacons. After that, we start practicing our target shooting with your hulls." The recording continued with Morrison's voice becoming almost conversational. "Oh, and High Command? Next time you want to test human resolve, maybe don't pick a Tuesday. We're always grumpy on Tuesdays." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Someone had just casually dismantled the second most powerful military force in the sector and made jokes about it. "How many human ships?" Vex 9 asked weakly. "Our sensors detected 3. 3 ships. 3 human vessels had destroyed an entire hegemony battle fleet in 17 minutes, then made sarcastic comments about their scheduling preferences. That's when the second transmission came in, this time directly from human space. The hologram showed Captain Morrison sitting in what appeared to be the command center of a massive space station. Behind her, technicians moved with practiced efficiency between banks of equipment that hurt to look at directly. "Greetings, Galactic Confederation," she began, her tone pleasant and professional. "I hope you don't mind the interruption, but we felt it was important to address some misconceptions that seem to be floating around." She leaned forward slightly, her gray eyes focusing directly on the camera with laser-like intensity. First, the incident at Proxima Colony was not an act of aggression by human forces. It was a police action, carried out under the terms of our mutual defense treaty with the Proxima government. Yes, they have a mutual defense treaty with us, signed it last week, along with 17 other systems in the region. The implications hit the Council like a chain reaction explosion. If humans had mutual defense treaties with worlds throughout the sector. Second, Morrison continued, we want to make it clear that humanity has no territorial ambitions beyond our current borders. We're perfectly content to develop our existing space in peace. However, we also want to make it clear that our existing space now includes any system that formally requests human protection. A new star chart appeared behind her, and what I saw made my cardiac organs skip several beats. Red zones indicating human influence had spread like a plague throughout the sector, connecting previously isolated systems in a web of mutual defense agreements. Third, we've received several inquiries about human military capabilities following today's demonstration. Let me address those concerns directly. The display changed to show technical specifications that made our most advanced weapons look like stone axes. Faster-than-light kinetic projectiles, gravitational manipulation drives, something called reality anchors that I didn't want to understand. These are not our most advanced systems, Morrison noted casually. These are our police action equipment, the toys we use when we want to arrest someone rather than vaporize them. Our actual military hardware is somewhat more enthusiastic. She paused for a moment, apparently checking something off-screen. Oh, and before anyone asks, yes, we know about the emergency session the Confederation Council is planning to discuss the human problem. We know because we've been monitoring your communications for the past 6 months. Not hacking them, you understand, just listening. It's amazing how much information gets transmitted on frequencies people assume nobody else is using. The blood drained from every face in the chamber. Our secure communications had been compromised for 6 months. Finally, Morrison concluded, we want to extend an invitation to any species interested in joining what we're calling the Terran Cooperative. It's a voluntary association of worlds committed to mutual defense, free trade, and the radical concept that different species might actually be able to get along without someone trying to conquer everyone else. She stood up, straightening her uniform with practiced precision. The cooperative currently includes 47 star systems, 312 inhabited worlds, and approximately 12 billion sentient beings who have decided they'd rather build things than blow them up. Membership is open to any species willing to abide by 3 simple rules. Don't attack other members, don't enslave your own people, and don't try to force your way of life on others. The transmission began to fade, but Morrison's voice remained clear. Oh, and one more thing. To the Zephyrian High Command, your defeated fleet will be returned to you tomorrow morning, along with detailed repair manuals and a bill for services rendered. Consider it a learning experience. The hologram disappeared, leaving us in a silence so complete I could hear my own breathing echoing in my ears. That was 6 months ago. Since then, the galaxy has become a very different place. The Terran Cooperative now encompasses over 300 systems and shows no signs of slowing down. Worlds are practically lining up to join, attracted by human promises of protection, prosperity, and the revolutionary idea that interstellar politics doesn't have to involve constant warfare. The Confederation still exists, but our influence has shrunk to less than half of what it was before first contact with humanity. The Zephyrian hegemony has effectively collapsed, with most of their former territory either joining the Cooperative or declaring independence under human protection. And me? I'm still here on my monitoring station, watching human space expand day by day, trying to understand how a species we dismissed as primitive managed to restructure galactic civilization in less than 4 years. The humans have kept their word, I'll give them that. No aggressive expansion, no forced conversions, no demands for tribute or technology transfer. They simply offer protection to anyone who asks for it, and somehow their definition of protection includes economic development, infrastructure improvement, and educational exchange programs. It's almost insulting how effective their approach is. Where the Confederation maintained order through military strength and bureaucratic control, humans achieved the same results through voluntary cooperation and what they call enlightened self-interest. Species that spent centuries fighting each other are now trading partners in the Cooperative. Just last week, I intercepted a human transmission that perfectly summarized their approach to galactic politics. It was Captain Morrison again, speaking to a group of new Cooperative members. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings, welcome to the Terran Cooperative. You're probably wondering what makes us different from other galactic powers. The answer is simple. We learned a long time ago that it's easier to make friends than enemies, more profitable to trade than conquer, and infinitely more fun to build things together than to fight over the pieces. She paused, and I could almost hear her smile through the transmission. Of course, if anyone decides to test that philosophy by attacking our friends, they'll discover that humans can be very creative about expressing our displeasure. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. It hasn't come to that, at least not yet. The galaxy seems to have learned the lesson of Proxima Colony. Don't mess with human friends, because humans have a very long memory and a very creative approach to problem solving. As I write this report, I can see a human cargo convoy passing through the shipping lanes below my station. Massive vessels carrying goods and materials between cooperative worlds, escorted by sleek warships that seem to bend light around their hulls. They move with the casual confidence of a species that has nothing to prove and nothing to fear. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if the Confederation had simply accepted humanity's original proposal for peaceful coexistence. Would we still be the dominant power in the galaxy? Would the humans have remained content with their small corner of space? But then I remember Captain Morrison's smile during that first diplomatic meeting, and I realized the truth. It was never really a negotiation. The humans had already won before they sat down at the table. They'd spent 3 years learning everything about us, while we learned nothing about them. They'd positioned their pieces while we were still figuring out what game we were playing. The scariest part? I'm starting to think they're right. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it's been in centuries. Trade is flourishing, technological advancement is accelerating, and for the first time in my long career, I can't remember the last time I had to file a report about genocide, planetary bombardment, or species extinction. Maybe that's what makes humans so terrifying. They're not just good at war, they're good at peace. And in a galaxy full of species that only understand strength, being good at peace might just be the most dangerous capability of all. My shift ends in an hour, and I'll file this report with Confederation intelligence. Not that it will matter much. The humans already know we're watching them, just like they know everything else. Captain Morrison told us as much 6 months ago. The galaxy belongs to humanity now, whether we admit it or not. They won it not through conquest, but through competence. And despite everything, I'm beginning to think that might not be such a bad thing after all. The humans are right about one thing. It is easier to make friends than enemies. Too bad it took the threat of human creativity to teach the rest of us that lesson. This is Keth, 902, former strategic intelligence analyst, signing off. May the stars have mercy on us all, because the humans certainly will.